We will be speaking about an artist's journey, rock music, and Krishna consciousness tonight. So, Titiksava Karunika Prabhu began playing guitar at age 11, then joined the Hare Krishna movement in 1979. In 1984, he founded the mantra rock band Krishnatics. Yes? And in 1992 was asked to join the Garanga Bhajan band on Krishna conscious concert tours in Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. He now heads Namrak, lives in California with his wife Sachi Mata, and performs regularly at the Holi or Color Festival in Utah, the LA Rath Yatra, and pre-pandemic in India, Brazil, and other parts of the world. Now I'd like to turn the interview over to Sarvabhauma Prabhu.
It's a real honor to have, we can call TK, call this wonderful devotee and musician TK for short. I met him in India. It's a curious story how I met him because he actually grew up right next to me in Manhattan Beach, California, but I didn't know him as a boy, but I met him in India, and I owe him a personal I'm indebted to him because he came and chanted when my mother passed away. I'd like to show a picture of my mother. Hopefully you can see it. She was a wonderful lady, and by Krishna's arrangement, Titiksava Karunika was available. Another amazing coincidence, and he came and chanted at a program for my mother at her home. So I'm very grateful to him. And before we talk about his musical and spiritual journey, I'd like everyone to see a little bit of a glimpse of him performing Krishna conscious mantra rock music at a festival. I believe it's in Brazil. Is that right, TK?
Yeah, the Sao Paulo show is Brazil. I'm pretty sure that's a clip you're going to show. I don't know. I haven't seen the clip.
Yeah, it's from your Namrak site. So
Okay.
So Sri Rupa, can we show that?
Yeah, this is Brazil.
It's very impressive.
I was feeling downhearted. I'm feeling down on my luck. I tell my friends up, you tell me, yeah, what you got is enough. Listen, my heart mantra is gonna set you free. Listen, my heart mantra is gonna get you the mercy. Yeah! I wanted to believe what he told me, but I've had a hard time keeping it together. Bills and pay, children to feed, yeah, you know I'm feeling under stormy weather. Listen, my heart mantra is gonna set you free. Listen, my heart mantra is gonna get you the mercy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Come all you sinners and sages, well, I've got something to tell. It's been acknowledged for ages, though very few know it well. Listen, my heart mantra is gonna set you free. Listen, my heart mantra is gonna get you the mercy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Everybody sing. Hare Krishna, repeat the Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare
Wow, that was far out. So seeing you in action like that, it brings up a question of how you got into music in general and how you connect music to spirituality. Can you tell us how you started your journey with music in general?
Well, just that, like every other kid, you watch the movie, you listen to records, and you think, oh, that sounds like fun. So yeah, I started playing guitar and learning Beatles songs and Rolling Stones songs, and of course, there was no internet there, so anything you learned from the record. I never had a guitar teacher. I'm a guitar teacher now. I never had a teacher. Everything that I learned from friends or just listening to the records and trying to figure them out. So that's how we got started, just learning from books and things, and just trying to sing some of those songs at parties.
Are there any musicians that inspired you? Like for a lot of devotees, George Harrison.
Yeah, sure, of course. One of the pivotal moments for me in devotional service was going to a George Harrison concert in 1974. That was the first time that I had met the devotees, and the first time I took prasadam. That's a pretty good story, actually. I was at this concert, and I went in. I saw the first show. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that concert, but Billy Preston was present, and Ravi Shankar was also playing. So, and at one point, George says, "Okay, I want everybody to sing along with us. We're going to do a song called My Sweet Lord, and it's going to have this mantra in it, and we're going to chant the names of God." And he said, "I want everybody else to join in with us, and you don't have to chant Hare Krishna. You can chant any names of God that you like." And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So anyways, I was thinking, yeah, sure, I'll sing along. I'm a singer. I like to sing. So he did that, and then we all chanted, so he was inspiring everybody to do Maha Mantra. And then I went out of the show. And when I came out of the show, it was a stadium in Florida. So I take that back, in Georgia. So then we came out, and the devotees were there. And so one devotee walked up and he said, "So did you like the show?" I go, "Yeah, it was great." He goes, "Would you like to see the next show?" There was 2 shows back to back, 7 o'clock and a 9 o'clock or something like that. So yeah, of course I'd love. He says, "Well, I got tickets," and I'm just going, "Okay, what's the catch?" He says, all you got to do is pass out these pamphlets. They were some flyers for the temple or something. I didn't really, know what they were. I didn't really care. I said, yeah, sure, I'll pass them out. So I was passing out these flyers. And then one guy comes up to me, goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm passing out these flyers for the Haris. They said if I passed out all these flyers, they'd give me a free ticket. And he goes, well, why don't you just throw the flyers in the dumpster and go back and tell them that you passed them all out? And I said, well, that's not cool. I told him I'd pass them out. It's not a big deal. I'll just pass them out. So anyway, I passed out the rest of the flyers and I went back and he said, so you passed out? And I said, yeah. He says, okay. And he handed me a Simply Wonderful, Simply Wonderful Sundays, right? So he handed me a Simply Wonderful. And I said, what's this sweet? So I kind of popped the sweet. And he said, here's your tickets. So there it was. Okay, so what are the three? What's the three punch in Hare Krishna? What are they? Come on, audience.
Holy name.
Yeah.
Prasad.
What did I do?
Dance.
No.
Literature.
I did service. I passed out the literature. So that's the 1, 2, 3 punch, right? So little did I know, but Krishna got me. He knocked me right out. Of course, I didn't join the movement until 5. I went through quite a bit after that. I certainly didn't just rush off and join the temple. I had a lot of anarthas to, smash down before I even got close. But yeah, that was my start right there with George Harrison concert, 1974.
How old were you at that point?
Yeah, 21. Because I joined in 25. So yeah, 21.
And you were living in Georgia, or you just?
Yeah, me and my friend, he was a drummer, Richard. We decided to, I was intent on being a musician. So we figured we'd go out to Georgia. We both lived in California. So we decided to drive out to Georgia and go stay with his grandparents and start a rock band in Georgia. That was the plan. Of course, it never really happened, but that's a whole nother story of my pastimes in Georgia. But yeah, we went out there and it didn't really happen as far as getting a band together, but I did go to that concert. So it was an important thing. Yeah.
So you had a taste of the Maha Mantra and George Harrison. You still continued with rock music. What was it about? Was there something about spirituality that attracted you at some point? I know that some of the rock scene music is a very powerful medium. When I was in college, I went to the concert at Altamont where the Rolling Stones were performing, and
You saw that one.
well, I showed up at the concert. I did a walk a long way in the fields, and then it broke up when I got there because Hell's Angel attacked somebody, and so some things in the rock music scene were, negative or not all uplifting. So, did you experience anything that led you to want to attain a higher taste?
Well, I mean, the music thing wasn't, to me, it wasn't a spiritual thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Harrison, I always enjoyed George Harrison's music. I was a huge Beatles fan. And, that was there. Those elements were there in his music, but it was just part of the scene. It wasn't until later when I had become completely frustrated with trying to, become a popular musician that I really started looking for something else. And that was a few years later, But spirituality had already been there in my life, to some degree or another. I mean, I always believed in God. I just didn't know anything about it. And as growing up, we always were indoctrinated with this whole belief that, to be successful meant to have a house, a wife, a car, money, and fame. And, that was the norm, that everybody believed that. And as far as spirituality, I grew up in the Christian church, Episcopalian church. And when I went to church, I saw the hypocrisy. People are talking about spirituality and God and this and that and the other. And then they'd go into the rec room and everybody sit around and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. And I'm thinking, well, what kind of spiritual life is that? You go to church for an hour and then the rest of the time you just sit around and there's nothing really spiritual about it, that I could see. So it didn't really, strike me as, because, I had read bits of pieces of the Bible. I heard Jesus's preaching, and what he was preaching and what I saw people in the church doing were two completely different things. So it didn't really, it didn't click to me. I wasn't saying these people aren't spiritual. And I didn't know what spiritual was. I didn't see any example of it. And so then I moved to, as time went on, after a few years, I went to Berkeley. I lived in Berkeley and was playing in bands and stuff in Berkeley and playing on the street. And, Berkeley Temple is on Stewart Street and then up on the campus, Sproul Plaza. So it's not very far. So anyway, it's interesting because I was living on the same street as the temple.
Oh, wow.
In Berkeley. I was on Stewart Street and I would walk by the temple on my way to go play. When the bands break up, what do? You play on the street. You got to survive. I'd reached a point where I said, okay, I'm not going to do anything else. If I can't make it as a musician, I don't care. I'm going to starve to death. I had that conviction, and I was able to sustain myself through playing music, either through bands or if I had to, I'd play on the street and make a little bit of money, enough to pay the rent, enough to get something to eat. So anyway, I'd walk by the temple, and you walk by a bank, you walk by a mosque, you walk by a deli, you walk by the Hare Krishna temple. And it's kind of like, well, what's going on in there? And that's the place where, those guys, they don't believe in drugs and they don't believe in sex and they don't believe in eating meat. And it's like, oh, okay, that's not for me. You walk by the place and that was it. But it was interesting because I'd be playing my guitar on the Sproul Plaza in Berkeley, and the devotees would come up and they would be chanting, right? They'd be doing their thing. And I was thinking, why are these people always so happy? What? I couldn't figure it out. They dress weird. They look weird. They are weird, but they're always happy. So how's that work? It didn't make sense. And then they would come up and I'd be playing, right? And I would get I'd get my little crowd of people sitting on the steps there. And, they'd sit there and they'd eat their lunch and then they'd, get up and they'd walk away and they'd throw a quarter or, 50 cents in the guitar case. And that's how I lived. But when the devotees came by, they would kind of like, disrupt the scene. And then, people would start standing up and walking away and, just kind of, what's with these people? Let's get out of here, and then they would forget the part where they're supposed to put 25 cents or $1 in my guitar case. So I was thinking, this is not cool, So then I started this thing where I would, play off of them. They would come and start doing their thing. And then instead of trying to fight with them or something like that, I would kind of join in and, dance around with them a little bit and kind of make it a thing. Right. So then the devotees would, they kind of like, oh, this guy's not so bad. He's kind of cool. Let's not mess up his program. So they would kind of come with me and I'd goof around and chant with them a little bit or, not chant, but pretend to be a part of this thing. And then they would leave and then all was good. So that was kind of the next thing, right? The next phase was a little bit of dancing and something association with it. And then as walking by this, temple every day, you'd see them like that. So, got like, but then when I went to a rainbow festival, you remember the rainbow festivals? You ever go to some of those?
Yeah. Rainbow gathering.
Yeah. Rainbow gatherings. So I went to a rainbow gathering with my girlfriend, Christine, at that time. And we hitchhiked out there. And we got to, it was in Arizona, I believe. Anyway, the devotees were there. So one time, I was at that time I was into raw foods. I'm still into raw foods to some extent, but I was kind of doing a thing of the raw food diet thing. So anyway, we're at this. If you know the rainbow festivals, it's basically a bunch of hippies in the woods. Anyway, it's fun. There's not a lot of nice people there, and a lot of spiritual seekers there as well. So there have been a lot of devotees that have been pulled out of rainbow gatherings. Anyway, so one time somebody came over to me and said, hey, the Hare Krishnas, they got a kitchen and they're serving out free food. You want to go? And I said, well, is it vegetarian? They said, yeah. And I said, well, do they serve raw foods? And he goes, well, no, it's not really raw foods. And I go, well, yeah, it's cool. I'm not interested. He goes, come on. It's like one of those, come on, why don't you come on? Anyway, after a discussion, finally talked me into going. So I went over to the Hare Krishna camp, and the devotees are there. And I don't know if you know Bahudak from Canada? He was a TP up in Vancouver.
I've seen him, but I don't know him.
Okay. So anyway, he was there and he was chanting, playing harmonium and chanting, Hare, and he's got this real deep voice, Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. So he was doing that thing. And there was some kid dancing next to him ecstatically. He had his shirt off and blue jeans all torn up. And he was, he wasn't really singing, but he was like dancing. I was thinking, this is, I could never seen this before. I said, this is interesting, So we're sitting there watching all this. And then the prasadam line starts getting bigger and bigger. I'm sitting down because nothing's really happening yet. So the line starts to get bigger and bigger. And I was thinking to myself, well, I don't like lines. Let me just, sit here until they actually start to serve out. So then they started serving out. And all of a sudden, you just imagine you're in the middle of the woods and there's nobody around. They started to serve out. And then all of a sudden, this line just, doubled. It went from like 25 to 50 to 75 people just like that. And you're just going, where did all these people come from? But now that we've, been in this movement, we know the mystical power of prasadam. You see it at the Sunday feast even. I mean, I don't know if it's the same in your temple, but as soon as they start serving out prasadam, all these people just show up, it's kind of a normal thing for the devotees to see that. But I'd never seen it before. So anyway, we get in line. Finally, we get some prasadam. And I noticed everything was yellow. It was like yellow rice, yellow drink, yellow potatoes, yellow corn, yellow people in yellow clothes and, yellow stuff on their forehead. It was like, okay, this is interesting. So then, anyway, that was my experience at the festival. Okay, so now we go home. We got to get home. Anybody going to San Francisco, Berkeley area? Yeah, I can give you a ride. Okay, cool. So we get a ride. This guy takes us all the way back to Berkeley, and then we're driving, to Berkeley. And of course, I'm telling him, where do you live? I live on Stewart Street. Okay, so we turn the corner on Stewart Street. The guy looks out the window, goes, hey, there's a Hare Krishna temple there. I just go, yeah, so what? He goes, they got food in there. So he rolls down the window and some brahmacharis are walking down the street. He goes, hey, we've been driving all the way from Arizona. We're hungry. You got any food? So they said, yeah, come on back in a few minutes. We got to get it out of the cooler. So we went up, dropped my bags off, and then we came back. And that was the first time that I'd walked into that temple before. And they gave us some prasadam. And then the devotee said, well, did you like it? I said, yeah, it was great. He says, well, we serve out a free feast every evening at 6:00 in the house down, a couple doors over. And if you want, you can come over every night and get free food like this for free. And I'm just going, okay. I'd just been traveling, hadn't made any money, was completely broke, had to come up with rent money, had to come up with food money, and a free meal didn't sound like a bad thing. Okay, that was it. Then, It was just a matter of time. You get the books, you get the association. They kept trying to talk me into coming to the Sunday feast. I never wanted to go. But finally, after a few months of prasadam, then, you're stuck. Anyway, so that's how I joined. And through the music, and one thing leads to another. Every devotee's got a wonderful story. We've seen this time and time again, how Krishna, throws out the hook and reels us in, slowly we get pulled in.
So you finally joined the temple in Berkeley?
I joined the Berkeley Temple. Yeah, that was 1979.
And when you were a devotee, was there a time when you didn't play rock music and just learned the basics of Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there was always music somewhere going on, but for the most part, yeah, we put it all on hold and went out on Sankirtan. The first few months, you just kind of get trained up at getting up in the morning and that kind of thing. And, how to put on your underwear, It was always one of the strangest things. You walk in the bathroom and just go, where are the toilet seats? Just like, oh, we don't have toilet seats. You don't have toilet seats? What do you do? Oh, you stand on the toilet. Oh, okay, right. That was interesting stuff, but, you kind of learn along the way. So you got to learn the ropes here. Okay. How do you do this again? Yeah, you tie it here and you do this. Roll the dhotis, put on the underwear. What is the underwear? Just two little bits of cloth. Okay, right. Yeah. How does that work? So that kind of, you had to learn that kind of stuff, so. But yeah, then you work in the kitchen, you sweep the floors, you clean the dishes, then you start, the deity kitchen, you start cutting fruits. And I was working in the tape ministry, copying tapes, and then there was the Christmas marathon. And then I went out and was selling. Remember these? I don't know if you remember the carved candles. You ever sell carved candles? We sold carved candles. I don't know.
Right.
First of all, I was making them, and then they sent me out to sell them. And then as soon as they figured out that I could sell something, I was a marked man. Okay, you're on Sankirtan. And it's like, and we sold everything under the sun. Candles. We tried to sell books. I remember Hansa Dudaprabhu, he sent us out on books. And we printed a bunch of Bhagavatams, actually. You remember those first black Bhagavatams, the smaller ones? I got some here. We got a set here.
Yes.
But we had printed out, I don't know how many copies. We had a whole warehouse full of them. And he said, okay, enough of this because the main thing was records. They were selling records, making a ton of money. At that time, the Berkeley Temple was just like booming like crazy. There's like so many devotees. The kirtans were, they were off the hook. Unbelievable. It was, and then there was a whole coalition of neighbors that wanted to shut us down because we had, truckloads of books and records and stuff coming up the street at 4 a.m. and kirtan, raging kirtans for Mangal Arti. The neighbors hated us, but it was a grand time. But yeah, we sold everything.
So in Krishna consciousness, not every devotee gets the opportunity to, do their own type of music. And so at what stage did you start to perform rock music with the Krishna conscious message or
well, right away. I mean, it wasn't very long after that I joined that I wrote, a Krishna blues song. I remember Akshaya was my Bhakta leader, but he remembers it better than I probably, that I wrote some, Krishna blues song. I don't even remember how it went now. But, there was always a guitar around someplace. And Hansa Duda, of course, was also playing guitar and doing music. So it wasn't like, some places it was completely boo-hooed, but because Hansa Duda was doing it in our temple, it wasn't so, so bad, such heavy Maya. But, at the same time, we didn't have time for it. We just didn't have time. I didn't. I was, doing other things. I was engaged in Sankirtan or whatever. So it was on hold. But yeah, I mean, okay. So sometimes we were listening to Hansa Duda's records, and sometimes when working in the candle factory, for instance, we had a little factory and we're all carving candles or dipping candles or doing whatever. But we would have Mangalananda's music on. And that was always very encouraging to me to see that, Mangalananda had made Krishna conscious records and, had utilized his talent in making Krishna conscious rock music or, Western style music. And that Prabhupada approved of it. He said this will be a great success. So,
can we fast forward a few years, like when the Iron Curtain was starting to open up in Eastern Europe and Russia? Devotees started going with books, secretly and getting books in, and great devotees like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and others were pioneering that. There came a point when devotees could enter into these countries and distribute books and music. And so, can you tell us something about that era? You formed your own band called the Krishnatics at some point,
yes.
and can you tell us how you evolved from the Krishnatics to going to Eastern Europe?
Okay. Well, Krishnatics was really, it started out with just myself and a devotee named Govinda Basya who played keyboards. He was an excellent musician. So that first album was a collaboration with him. And then I made several other recordings in my home studio. We when I was on Sankirtan, I asked permission from my Sankirtan leader if I could, because we were selling paintings at that time, if I could trade paintings for musical gear, recording gear and guitars and stuff, because nobody, you could never talk the temple into giving you money to go out and buy a tape recorder or something so you could record. But he said, because we were getting such a high markup on the paintings that you get, sometimes 5-10 times the amount of what you paid for a painting. So to trade paintings to get musical gear, he approved of it. So I got an 8-track Tascam tape recorder and a mixing desk and microphones. I even still have a few of the microphones left that I traded for. That was, 35 years ago. But so I got the recording equipment, and then we recorded our own albums. I never had, the privilege of a proper studio and producer and all that stuff. It's pretty much, makeshift home studio type things. But yeah, that was Krishnatics. And that was, we did 4 albums like that. And then in 92, a friend of mine, Ram Shraddha, he came up to me, he says, TK, you got to see what they're doing in Eastern Europe, And he showed me a video of some of the stuff that Gauranga Bhajan Band was doing. And, you see all these people chanting and dancing and, it's just like, yeah, he says, you should be doing that. I go, okay, what do I got to do? He says, well, you got to talk to Hari Kesh or like that. So anyway, I was in India and I met the devotees in India that were associated with Gauranga Bhajan Band. And then somehow or another, I got to meet with Hari Kesh Swami because he was the leader of the band. And I said, I'd like to, join up with the Gauranga Bhajan Band. And then he said, well, I'll think about it. So anyway, things went on. And finally he said, yeah, okay, come on over, we'll let you join in and be a part of it. So I thought, okay. So I, spent my money, bought my ticket, showed up in St. Petersburg with my gear all ready to play. And then there was a meeting, you know, Krishna Prema was there, and a lot of devotees were there. Who else was there? Krishna Chaitra was there. But some of the devotees weren't there yet. But anyway, so they had this meeting
St. Petersburg in Russia, right?
in Russia. Yeah. So I'd flown to Russia to be a part of Garanga Bhajan band. So he says, "Oh, do you know how to run a mixing desk?" And I said, "Well, yeah." So he says, "Okay, well, you're in charge of the monitor mix." And I just thinking, what? I came over here to play. I didn't want to run a mixing board. So, so anyway, this first show, and it was like, you know, the first stadium we watched. It was a huge stadium. It was like 15,000 people there, you know. And okay, so I get there and I'm looking at this mixing desk. You know, I don't know if you know anything about mixing sound, but when you mix the main mix, then you mix for the audience, and you basically got to mix one mix. But when you're doing the monitor mix, you got 7, 8 different musicians, and they all want something different. So you got to mix 7 different mixes for these people to keep them happy. And I'm looking at this mixing board, and, you know, they're all a little bit different. And on top of that, guess what? All the instructions are in Russian. So I'm just going, oh God, what have I gotten myself into? So anyway, I struggled through this, and by the end of the show, I got up to where everybody was kind of happy. And then I went out and I, sang a couple songs as a backup singer. So then Sri Ram, who is the temple president in Moscow, and I'd known him from Los Angeles, he comes up to me, he says, "TK, how come you're not playing some of your songs here?" And I go, "Well, I came here thinking that I was going to do something, but, I don't know. It just didn't happen." He says, "Do you want me to talk to Harikesh?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So anyway, he spoke with Harikesh, and then finally Harikesh says, "Okay, why don't you play some songs?" So one thing leads to another. And then by the time we got to the Moscow show, I had incorporated, or Garanga Bhajan Band had incorporated 5 of my songs into the set. So that's how I got, in the band. It wasn't so easy. But then the Moscow thing, of course, was huge, gigantic thing.
I met you in Chaupati, I believe.
Yeah, Chaupati.
And this was quite interesting. I also went to college in Berkeley, so I was probably there. Now, when I met you in India, I met this American guy that you were doing some program at Cross Maidan or where?
I'm not sure I forget what year that was, but I think we'd already done the Cross Maidan thing. Was Sham Sundar organized that Cross Maidan festival? What year?
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm not so good with dates. I'm sorry.
Anyway, I didn't see your performance, but I think you were going to the Juhu temple, and you were an American. So I said, "Where are you from in the States?" You said, "I'm from Southern California originally, or you spent some time there." I said, "What part of California, Southern California?" You said, "Manhattan Beach." Now, I had grown up at Manhattan Beach myself, so I was really surprised to see there was a devotee from my hometown.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was.
You're kind of blown away.
Yeah, and then I said, "What street did you grow up in Manhattan Beach?" And you said Oak Avenue. And that's the street that I grew up on. So here I'm in India. I'm meeting some guy that's a Hare Krishna musician. He's from the same town as I am, the same street. And I asked, "What street number were you?" I was at 2201, and you were at what?
2301.
Yeah. So years later, I think you dropped me off at my.
Yeah, one time we were at the temple in L.A., and I was staying at my mom's house, who's still in Manhattan Beach, and you said, "Are you going to Manhattan Beach?" I said, "Yeah." "Can you give me a lift?" "Yeah, sure." So I remember we were driving, back to us, and because I forgot what number your house was, or even if you had told me in Chaupati, I don't remember that. But anyway, so we're driving and say, "Where do you turn?" "Okay, turn on Rosecrans." "Wow, this is where I would turn." I turned left on Oak Avenue. So we're driving down Oak Avenue, and oh, that's where I lived, 2301. And then we went another. So mine's what, 2401, you said? So mine's 24. So it must be the next block, we're thinking. And as it turned out, it was like 2 doors down. And we could barely believe it that we lived so close together. We didn't know each other. You were what, 5-6 years older than me or something. So
So
when you
we met in India, and then what was really amazing after that was my mother. She was 97 and she had a fall, so she had to be in bed at home, and they gave her a hospice care, and so I was spending time with my mother cooking for her, and she really liked devotees, and she had hosted devotees during Rath Yatra sometime at our home. And so her health started to really fade, and they assigned a hospice nurse to my mother. And this hospice nurse, it turned out, was a Prabhupada disciple. Her name is Divya Dristi.
Yeah.
So the odds of, there's not a whole lot of Hare Krishnas that are hospice nurses. So they assigned her to my mother's care. And then she was actually a very good nurse, but she carried Ganges water and Tulsi leaves and all that too. And, I was so happy to have a devotee taking care of my mother. And then when my mother's health really started to fade, she said, "Your mother only has a couple of days to live." So I informed my wife, Guru Bhakti, who was in Houston at the time, and she was able to come to my mother's house and spend some really nice time in her last couple of days. And then my mother finally passed away. And we thought that it was maybe on a Tuesday that she passed away or a Monday. We thought we'd have a program then the next weekend for my mother. She didn't want anything like a funeral at a church or anything, but we decided to have a program for her in her backyard. So I was thinking, well, have some prasadam. It'd be nice to have some chanting. But, just a thought. Then me and Guru Bhakti, my wife, before she left back to Houston, she had to go back to work. We were doing a japa walk, and we were going towards the beach. Now, apparently, your parents had moved. They weren't living right next to our house, my mother's house, but they were closer to the beach. So we were doing our japa walk, chanting with our bead bags, and some lady said, "Hare Krishna." And it turned, that was your wife, right?
Yeah. She was very surprised to see you guys because you also had your bead bags. So you were, I think you were an unusual sight for her as well in Manhattan Beach.
Now, at that time, you weren't living in Manhattan Beach, so you weren't there very often.
No, we just come to visit sometimes.
You live closer to San Diego, right?
No, let's see. When we were there, I think, anyway, we were living in San Jose. I forget, all the dates are a bit blurry to me. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
But either we were staying with them temporarily or just over there for the visit. We would come to visit. Sometimes we'd stay there for a while.
So anyway, your wife invited us to see you, and she said you just gotten in from South America. We had some performance.
Yes.
So we saw you, and then I was so happy, and I thought maybe this TK is quite a nice chanter and musician. So I asked you if you could perform at this memorial program for my mother. So you said, well, I got to do something in San Diego, but I guess I could come back on the weekend. So
so that was it. We were living down here and just I'd flown in there and then we'd stay with my parents for a few days and then we'd come back. So I was we were going back and forth. That's right.
It was very fulfilling for me because my mother was a wonderful person, and she had given so much to me, and so we had a program. Some of her friends helped us cook prashad. I cooked a feast. My my wife brought some frozen samosas from Houston the next weekend, which we served out. And then you were the highlight. You chanted "My Sweet Lord," and the neighbors actually provided the sound system, and one of the kids next door played a flute.
Oh yeah.
And but you chanted "My Sweet Lord," which was really wonderful. So I'm ever grateful to you for that, and all the coincidences that happened.
No such thing as a coincidence, Prabhu.
Yeah, I mean, my faith in God is not always that much, but it's so obvious that Krishna arranged so many things. So I'm so happy that you could be with us, and maybe we could ask if anybody has any questions. Maybe we can have, if you're willing to do a little singing for us at some point, but maybe we can
Oh
ask.
yeah, my goodness, it's already 10 to 6. How did that happen?
Anyway, we have time, but does anybody have any questions? And we'd like to end with some music and
Don't all speak at once.
Haribo.
Well, Haribo, Matthew. Where are you? You're in the kitchen in Houston? Where are you?
Oh yeah, right by the temple. In this apartment that Robert's letting me stay in.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your
So
question?
I wanted to know if you ever had any instruction on what to do and what not to do when making devotional music.
Yeah, don't be in Maya. I don't know.
Thank you.
The whole trick, of course, is to be Krishna conscious. Music is, just another extension of the self. So if you're Krishna conscious, that's going to come through. And, it's not even so much, what you sing as to, where your heart is, where your motivation is, what your goal is when you're singing. If people feel that, then it's going to have some positive effect. And then just the opposite, of course, is also true. If you're trying to get something from some people, or, even if you're chanting Hare Krishna and your goal is to be, worshiped, or then that's also not good. So, that's the trick. I think we have to become purified. Purity is a force, Prabhupada said. If we become purified, then our music will have some effect, some benefit for the listeners. Make sense?
Excellent.
what was it like in Russia and Eastern Europe when you first went? Must have been quite a amazing experience.
Yeah, for sure. We were with the Swamis, so I was an unusual experience, because I always heard, yeah, Russia is so austere, they don't have anything to eat. It's like heavy. And I go, really? So anyway, we get there, and then they bring all this food, cakes and subjis and savories and this and that. And I'm just going, wow, this doesn't look like they're so starving to me, And then one day I decided, okay, well, let me go down and just take prasadam with the rank and file devotees, I think this was in Riga. And then it was like, okay, what's for prasadam? Well, we got cabbage and we got potatoes, and there's no milk, and there's no butter, and there's no sugar. Those things we only get on Sundays. Then it was like, okay, now I got it. So yeah, things were a little bit different for us. We were well taken care of, but it was for the rank and file devotees at that time was very austere. Those guys are very austere.
And the Russian people were receptive to Krishna consciousness.
Oh, it was huge. I mean, when we came there, they said that there's two things that the Soviet government was most afraid of, and that was religion and Western music. And here comes Garunga Bhajan Band, a religious musical group. People loved it. They went nuts. They absolutely, they had never seen something like that. They'd been repressed for so long that when they finally got an opportunity to engage in something like that, they were head over heels. We got huge response. You're speechless.
Yeah. There was a dissident named Solzhenitsyn who had come from Russia, and he came to America. He was against the Russian government when it was very repressive. And he said that materialism was the enemy, and it took different forms. And in Russia, it took the form of repressive government for a long time. In America, it took the form of intense consumerism and materialism that just kind of snuffed out the soul and the spirituality. So I always thought of that as a nice insight. And today there might be more devotees in Russia than just about anywhere else in the world, right?
Well, it's a fact. I mean, if you go to Mayapur, it used to be there's, Bengali, and then the store operators would put English signs, but now there's no more English. It's Bengali and Russian. And a lot of the Bengali guys, they speak Russion because,
really?
Yeah, they learn Russian because all their customers are Russian. It's amazing. There's, it's way more Russians than Americans, that's for sure. It wasn't like that.
And you went to Croatia also, right?
Yeah, I lived in Croatia. We lived there for 2.5 years. That's where I met I met my wife a little bit before, but that's, we stayed in Croatia. She's from Croatia. Yeah.
Anyone have any other questions? If not, we'll try to end with some transcendental sound vibration from TK.
Yeah, let's see if this works. Has the audio been good out there? So I think it's been good. Let's see if it works with the music. Does it work?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So this is I'll play a new song for you. It's like a country song. Well, I'm standing here before you. Why should you even look at me? For your love, I ran to claim my destiny. All in the name of being free. Yeah, I'm standing here before you, got a pocket full of blues. They say that when you've nothing left, you've nothing left to lose. Now you can do with me anything you choose. Then I'm wondering if there's any way at all you could help me to ignore Sri Maya's call that's been pulling me away from you so long. I got sinners to the left of me, sages to the right. They're all pulling me every which way. Sometimes I don't know who to fight. like a moth consumed by flames, being lured by the light. And I'm wondering if there's any way at all you could help me to ignore Sri Maya's call that's been pulling me away from you so long. This body, it is aging, it's getting older every day. I wanted to enjoy myself, and that's the price we pay. Now I'm hoping that you'll help me change my ways. Then I'm wondering if there's any way at all you could help me to ignore Sri Maya's call that's been pulling me away from you so long. That's that one.
Haribo!
Jai Haribo. It's all right. Okay. More? We can chant. I'm happy to chant for hours. This is kind of fun. Thank you all so very much for joining in. It's been a real pleasure.
Encore.
What do you guys want to hear? Anything in particular?
My Sweet Lord.
My Sweet
Yes.
Lord.
My Sweet Lord.
All right, you got it. Yeah, this song brought a lot of people to Krishna conscious. My sweet Lord, my Lord, I really want to see you. I really want to be with you. Really want to see you, Lord, but it takes so long, my Lord, my sweet Lord, my Lord, my sweet Lord. Really want to know you, really want to go with you, really want to show you, Lord, that it won't take long, my Lord, my sweet Lord, my Lord. Really want to serve you, really want to serve you, really want to serve you, Lord, really want to serve you, Lord, but it takes so long, my Lord, my sweet Lord, my Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. Mahamantra Ki Jai. Srimad George Harrison Ki Jai. So there's my sweet Lord for you all. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Prabhu. That was beautiful.
Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for being there. Appreciate it. Okay, so I guess that about wraps it up.
Can
Thank
we
you so much,
end there?
Prabhu.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We put the link to the website where you can purchase albums in the chat.
Okay.
So please check out the website. I see that you have so many albums. You have about 9 albums, right?
Well, more than that, actually, but yeah, a lot. I have, those are the ones that actually CDs are kind of old hat nowadays. So I don't have them all, what they call stamped.
Right.
But if somebody wants a CD, I can burn them for you and send them out. It's not so professionally packaged and all that, but it does the trick. And if you want to just listen to my music, you can go to Spotify or iTunes. And I've put everything under my stage name, which is Tommy Kind, Kind. And there, if you go there, you can just, search Tommy Kind and you'll see a whole ton of my stuff that you can listen to. So if you're interested, you can go there and have a listen.
So on Spotify also, in addition to the website. And what was the other one?
Oh, iTunes. I don't know what else it's on, but yeah, iTunes and Spotify, I think, are the 2 most popular ones. So I believe that they're on there, at least most of them, everything. But yeah, you can check it out. Tommy Kind. That's my new stage. Why do you call yourself? Because kind is Karunika, right? Karunika, kindness. And Tommy, I grew up with Tommy. But yeah, you get kind of like, you had the difficulty in saying my name with these. So people, what does TK stand for? Titiksava Karunika. What? So I went to, what does TK stand for? Oh, Tommy Kind. Oh, okay, Tommy Kind. Got it. So that's how that came around. But yeah, if you look for Tommy Kind, to put everything underneath that, because I was in Krishnatics and Transcendence, Gauranga Bhajan Band, and now my group is called Namrak. Oh, by the way, if you happen to be in Utah on the 12th, we'll be doing a Salt Lake City Color Fest if you want to swing by. So that's coming up. And that'll be the first time that Namrak has played in over a year. So we're very much looking forward to that.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah. So it should be good.
If the LA Rath Yatra happens, will you be?
I will, but guess what? I called up Ratnabhushana and he said, no, it's not going to happen. So, it may change, but that was his opinion just a few days ago, that the city is just giving him too much trouble and it's just, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So this can post, and I'm supposed to go to Germany and Switzerland also here in a month. And I don't think that's going to happen either because there's too much restrictions. If you go there, I'm going to go there for 2 weeks, right? The plan was to go there for 2 weeks, Rath Yatra in Zurich, and then in Germany, a festival in Springen. And they just said, well, if you go, you're probably going to have to be in quarantine for 14 days. And so, oh, great. So you fly there, you sit in quarantine for 14 days, and then you fly home, just like, forget it. It's, it's still kind of messed up. We're not back to normal yet. We're praying for that, but it hasn't happened yet. But anyway, we get to do this thing in Salt Lake City. So that's one thing. In the meantime, I'm playing at the flea market. Got to do something, right? But I do my books. I go out there and I got my little book bag or book basket, and people come up and they throw some money in the basket, and I ask them to take a book. And a lot of times people will take a book. So it's nice. And I chant. I do a little bit of chanting. Of course, I play a lot of cover songs. But I also like to do my songs, and I can sneak a few of them in there. You know, I don't want to do too much so they kick me out. But I do some chanting and I do some book distribution and try to stay Krishna conscious as best we can, right? And things like this are very helpful. I'm starting to get the hang of this Zoom thing now. Maybe I'll embrace it a little bit more as we go on. And yeah, let me know how it worked with the music, because like I said, I've had some bad experiences in the past, so I'm hoping that this time it worked. We'll see. I'll check out the recording and see how it looks. Anyway, thank you all very, very much for having me, and I wish you all the best, and maybe we can hook up and do this again sometime. So I don't know what else to say. Haribo, Hare Krishna, all glories, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.